Alrighty, folks, we're now 2-0 in our last couple of extra daily picks on my premium page. We had the Clippers -3 in that package yesterday, and they actually beat the Mavericks by 9 on the road. And the good news is I have another extra daily pick going off here this evening. It costs us $2.99 for 30 days of service. And as an added bonus, you're also going to get access to my daily best play for the next 30 days. During that time frame, absolutely free. It's going to be included with your purchase. The math works out to be just 9 cents a day. Now, you may be wondering what the difference is between what I do here on the free videos and what I do on my premium page. Well, what I do here on the free videos is I'll handicap the entire slate of games in any given sport, side and total. And what I do on my premium page is, well, I actually share with you which one of these free plays I actually like the best. I'm 2-0 my last couple of extra daily picks, 6-3 in my last 9 NFL tier membership plays. And finally, folks, I'm hitting at 85% my last 14 chairman package picks on my premium page. And the good news is I have picks going off in all of those packages here today. The site is patreon.com/BrockPage. And with that, folks, we're going to jump into some free content. We're going to take a look at the Jazz at the Pistons, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Detroit's -1, totals 237. And even though Utah's been terrible on the road this year, they're facing a Detroit team who's won just 2 games this year. Just 2 games out of 27 total contests. The Pistons are a bottom 3 point producing team in the league. And no real surprise here, they're the worst 3-point shooting team in the NBA as well. They're facing a Utah team on the other side who does play, so excited, can't get it out. Utah plays good D at times. More specifically, they play good D late in games. They're in the top 10 in fewest fourth quarter points allowed. See, when you can't spit it out, you gotta really just force it through. Fourth quarter points. That's what they're good at, not allowing them. And when it comes to rebounding the basketball, they've done a nice job on the defensive end of the court. The Jazz are in the top 5 in the West in defensive boards per game. Lauri Markkanen, he snags nearly double-digit rebounds a game. He's also the team's leading points getter a game. John Collins, he's been the team's deep ball threat. He's drilling nearly 41% of his attempts from three-land. Now, injury-wise, Yurtseven and George are questionable for the Jazz. Jordan Clarkson's still out. Meanwhile, for the Pistons, Stewart and Hayes are questionable. Duren and Morris still out for them. Now, 4 out of the Pistons' last 5 contests got over the total. Overs against the likes of the Hawks, Bucks, and Pacers. Meanwhile, Utah has gone 5-1 of the over against Eastern Conference opponents this year. Give me the Jazz +1 over 237. Next game, Pels, Cavs, 7:30 p.m. East. Cleveland's 1.5, totals 228 and a hook. Now, the Cavaliers aren't particularly known for their offensive prowess. These guys are in the bottom 10 in shooting from three-land. They also tend to shut it down late in games. They're a bottom 3 fourth quarter scoring team in the East. And they're facing a Pelicans team who, for some reason, does a pretty nice job defending from beyond the arc. These guys have the 4th lowest defensive 3-point percentage in the game. And here's a quirky stat for you. The Pelicans allow fewer second quarter points than any other team in the league. They're very stout defensively in the first half. Now, injury-wise, Valanciunas, Zeller, Zion, and Jones are questionable. Nance and Ryan still inactive. Meanwhile, for the Cavs, Mitchell and Jerome questionable for them. Garland and Mobley still out. The Cavs' last 3 straight got over the total. Overs against the likes of the Jazz, Rockets, and Hawks. Meanwhile, the Pels saw the over cash in 6 out of their last 10 themselves. Give me the Pelicans +1.5 over 228 and a hook. All right, next game could be a good one. Pacers, Grizzlies, 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Memphis was -4.5 at home, totals 248. And even though the Grizzlies are completely new look now with Ja back in the lineup, this is a team sport still. And the Grizzlies have been a terrible team in Memphis. Out of a dozen ball games in the FedEx Forum this year, the Grizzlies lost all of them except for one. And aside from some significant rebounding problems on D, the Grizzlies also have a tough time defending the long ball. Their opponents are making just about 40% of their three-pointers against them. And that's certainly bad news for Memphis fans because the Pacers love to score points. They're leading the NBA in points per contest. And no real shock here, folks. They've got the highest offensive field goal percentage in the league as well. Tyrese Halliburton scores a team-high 24 points a game. He also leads the NBA in assists. Meanwhile, Aaron Nesmith, he's drilling just about 45% of his three-pointers. Now, injury-wise, Andrew Nembhard's questionable with a knee. Meanwhile, for Memphis on the other side, Rose, Smart, Kennard, and Clark, they're all still inactive. When it comes to the total, the Grizzlies did see overs recently against the likes of Dallas, Minnesota, and Phoenix. Meanwhile, the Pacers are 10-3 to the over on the road. Give me the Pacers plus 4.5, over 248. Next game, Clippers, Thunder, 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Oklahoma City's -4 totals, 235.5. And even though it is tough to fade the Clippers right now, they are red hot. They are in the second of a back-to-back, and they do play their worst on the road. Matter of fact, the Clippers currently have a losing record away from home. So like I said, make no mistake, tough to fade these guys right now. They can't do anything wrong, but this could potentially be the spot where that winning streak gets broken. Now, they're facing a Thunder team on the other side who's playing some pretty good basketball recently themselves. OKC got the W in 6 out of their last 8. When it comes to offensive production, OKC makes it look pretty easy. They lead the NBA in free throw percentage, top 3 in shooting from beyond the arc. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's averaging over 30.5 points a night. Lou Dort's drilling 40% of his long balls. Now, injury-wise, Paul George and Bones Highland are questionable for the Clippers. When it comes to the total, 3 out of Los Angeles' last 4 contests got over the total. We're talking about overs against the likes of Indiana, New York, and Golden State. Meanwhile, OKC went 60% to the over in their last 10. Give me OKC -4, over 235.5. All right, next matchup, another one that could potentially be a good one. I'm talking about the Magic at the Bucks, 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Milwaukee's -7.5, totals 239. And even though the Bucks have been nearly impossible to beat in the Fiserv, they've struggled covering the number there. The Bucks covered in just 7 of 17 home games, and a lot of that is due to some poor defensive play. Simply put, they're allowing just too many points in their own arena. The Bucks are in the bottom 5 in the East in points allowed at home, and they're facing an Orlando team who does most of their scoring in the second quarter. These guys are in the top 5 in the East in second quarter points, but of course the real strength of this Orlando team has been their defensive play. These guys are in the top 5 in the league in defensive points per game. Now, injury-wise, Joe Ingles is questionable for the Magic. Giannis day-to-day for the Bucks. Milwaukee's last 5 straight all got over the total. 9-1 to the over in their last 10. Meanwhile, the Magic went 70% to the over in their last 10 themselves. Give me Orlando plus 7.5, over 239. Next ball game, Spurs, Bulls, 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Chicago's -4.5, totals 238 and a hook. And when it comes to the point spread, well, not many teams have been better at covering recently than Chicago. They covered the number in their last 4 straight, 9-1 against the point spread in their last 10. And during that time frame, the Bulls played pretty stout on defense in many different spots. They're currently in the top 10 in the NBA in defensive points at home. And they're going up against a Spurs team who's the worst scoring club on the road in the NBA. These guys currently dead last in point production on the road, dead last in shooting the 3-ball in that same category. And in San Antonio's last 10 ball games, they got the W only one time. Wembanyama and Johnson are questionable for the Spurs. Henri Drill is day-to-day for Chicago. Now, total-wise, the Bulls are 6-0 to the over against the Western Conference at home. Meanwhile, the Spurs saw all 7 of their out-of-conference ball games get over the line. Give me the Bulls minus 4.5, over 238 and a hook. All right, next game, Lakers T-Wolves, 9 o'clock Eastern start time. Minnesota's minus 5.5, totals 225. Now, Minnesota's been nearly perfect at home this year. They're 11-1 straight up on their own court. And when it comes to defensive play, Minnesota's been impossible to score against. These guys allow fewer points a game than any other team in the NBA. They're facing a Laker club who isn't all too intimidating offensively. These guys are nearly dead last in three-pointers made per game. When it comes to fourth quarter scoring, well, not many teams do it worse than the Lakers. These guys are a bottom 5 point producing team in the fourth quarter. Now, injury-wise, Anthony Davis is questionable. Hood Schifino's day-to-day. Meanwhile, for Minnesota on the other side, they're mostly healthy except for Jalen Clark. He's day-to-day with an Achilles. Now, the T-Wolves are 67% to the under in the target center. They're also 8-2 to the under in their last 10 meetings with the Lakers. So if you're into historical trends, plenty of unders to go around. Now, the Lakers averaged just 107 points a game during those 10 head-to-head meetings. Give me Minnesota minus 5.5, under 225. And with that, folks, we're going to jump into our next and final breakdown for the video. It's going to be in that Wizards-Blazers game. That'll be a 10 o'clock Eastern start time. Portland's minus 3.5, totals 241. And for a team laying points in this spot here, the Blazers have been pretty awful recently. They lost 7 out of their last 8, and they're winning only 25% of their contests in the Moda Center. And a lot of that is due to some poor offensive execution. The Blazers are dead last in the NBA in shooting from the field on their own court. They're facing a Washington club who has no problem scoring on the road. This is a top 10 point producing team away from home. Kyle Kuzma scores over 23 points a night. Jordan Poole's second on the roster in points. When it comes to the injury list, Landry Shamet is inactive. Wright and Davis still out. Meanwhile, for Portland on the other side, Shaedon Sharpe, he is still out for them. And when it comes to the total, the Blazers are 7-1 to the under against the Eastern Conference. Meanwhile, the Wizards saw unders recently against the likes of the Suns, Pacers, and Nets. Give me the Wizards plus 3.5, under 241. And with that, folks, now it is time for our quick pick recap. Give me the Jazz plus 1, over 237. Pelicans plus 1.5, over 228 and a hook. Pacers plus 4.5, over 248. I'm 2-0 my last 2 extra daily picks on my premium page. And the good news is I have another extra daily pick going off here today for just $2.99 for 30 days of service. The math works out to be just 9 cents a day. The link for my site is in my bio. Give me OKC minus 4, over 235.5. Magic plus 7.5, over 239. Bulls minus 4.5, over 238 and a hook. Minnesota minus 5.5, under 225. With my next and final pick for the video, give me the Wizards plus 3.5, under 241.